Next item is Bodhi Vandana. This is also a controversial religious practice because there are some people who criticize or condemn the Buddhists and some others who pay respect to certain trees. And this tradition was started long ago, before religions come into existence. Because they believe that there are some spirits or devas or some invisible or supernatural living being around that area. They started to worship having seen certain phenomena according to their own experience. There are two, especially according to Indian tradition, there are two trees according to that climate, Bodhi tree and banyan tree. They regard these two trees as sacred trees. When you study the previous Buddhas, how they gained their enlightenment, each of them gained their enlightenment under a certain tree when they were meditating. And not only these two, Bodhi and banyan tree, there were many other trees also used by the previous Buddhas. But we have forgotten the others and we do not know exactly. The names are there in the book. So we pay respect to the tree under which the Buddha, who was nearer to us, Shakyamuni Buddha or Gautama the Buddha, who gained his enlightenment under this tree. A Bodhi tree is not the name of this tree. In India, Aswatha, Dirghayus, Chalapatra, Gajasana, Pippal, these are the names used at that time. But after gaining the enlightenment, the people have given this name to this particular tree as Bodhi tree. Bodhi means wisdom. Again, the Buddha, he himself paid respect as a mark of respect or gratitude. First week, he sat down under that tree, experiencing the happiness, freedom in his life. Formerly, he never had this kind of bliss or peace in his mind. And these words automatically came out from his mouth. These are known as the first utterance of the Buddha, the first word that he uttered after gaining his enlightenment. But there was nobody to listen to these words. So what did he say? Aneka jati sangsarang sandha vissang anibbisang gahakarakang gavesanto dukkha jati punappuna gahakaraka ditthosi punageyang nakahasi sabbate pasuka bhagga gahakutang visankhitang visankhara gatang cittang tannhanang kaya madhyaka. These are the words. The meaning, aneka jati sansara. I had to suffer in this sansara, life after life, during such a long period, due to my ignorance. I could manage to get rid of these mental impurities or ignorance from my mind. Today, my mind is completely pure. I have completely eradicated or destroyed or broken all the materials used by the ignorance to build this house. So this ignorance cannot build this house anymore. I have completely destroyed everything. Sabbate pasuka bhagga, destroyed everything. Again he says, visankhara gatang citta. Now, there are no sankharas in my mind. This is a very important word. Sankhara. Sankhara means good and bad karma that accumulated life after life, which were deposited in the subconscious mind. Completely empty. He cannot create any more good karma or bad karma, because he cannot create good karma because he has no craving for existence again. Therefore karma has nothing to do with him. He cannot do bad karma because there are no craving or hatred or ignorance in his mind. So mind is free from both. Therefore he says, no more sankhara in my mind. Tanhanang kaya madhyaga. Tanha, the main cause which creates all the other mental impurities and disturbances, worries and unhappiness, completely eradicated. No more cravings. I think you can remember, I have explained that we maintain three kinds of tanha or craving. Now in his mind, any of these three, craving is no more. Kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. Kama tanha means the craving that we maintain to experience more sensual or worldly pleasure. Now this is the nature of this kama loka, sensual world, amongst humans, animals and devas also. And all our problems, worries and disturbances, trouble and enmity, jealousy appear because of this. The living beings in this kama loka experience all these problems and worries and disturbances because of that craving. It is true. Next one is bhavatanha. The craving that we maintain, that we want to exist. We like to have another rebirth. We like to have eternal life based on our craving. And because of these three stages of our craving, we suffer, we worry. There is no peace because of that. Then the last one, vibhavatanha. Vibhavatanha we can explain in three ways. Those who believe that this is the only life, there won't be another existence hereafter or after our death. We like it. That type of craving is called vibhavatanha because it is not practical, or there is no reality in this belief. It is only imagination. And the other aspect of this craving is committing suicide. When you got fed up with your life, when you could not gain what you wanted, you have no courage to face. Then you decide to commit suicide thinking that you can get rid of this problem. But you never think, by creating such ideas, we pollute the purity of our mind and we depart from this world after committing suicide with polluted mind, not with pure mind. Therefore, rebirth cannot become a good one, reasonable one. And there is another aspect of this kind of craving. This is more dangerous. There are certain things that we like too much, but we do not allow others to make use of them. We are willing to destroy them, burn, but do not allow others to use. That is craving, the nature of that craving. Now I explain this craving in three ways: kama tanha, bhavatanha, vibhavatanha. So the Buddha says, now I have no more craving, either kama tanha or bhavatanha or vibhavatanha. So after spending for 1 week. Then he got up. Then he thought, I must pay respect to this tree. This tree has given me shelter for gaining my enlightenment. I think all of you know, he gained his enlightenment during the month of May, Vesak. Month of May is the summer in India, very hot. Sometimes the temperature goes up to 120. So no one can stay outside without a shelter. So this tree has given him shelter for his meditation. So whether it is animate or inanimate, it is my duty to show my gratitude to this tree. So he was watching this tree, spent for 1 week respecting this tree. And this is the first lesson that he has taught us after gaining enlightenment. What is that? Show your gratitude. Then, third week, he found out Devas still could not understand whether the Buddha gained his enlightenment or not. To clarify their doubts, what he did, he performed a miracle there. What is this miracle? He created a small bridge, very narrow. Only one person can cross. And he stood here. Then he created another Buddha figure at the other end of the bridge. It is only a vision. Now these two Buddhas, when they come to the middle, it is very difficult for them to cross. Not enough space. But automatically they cross. So he performed this miracle for 1 week. Then the Devas knew an ordinary man cannot perform this kind of miracle. Because he knew simply by talking to them, preaching, they don't accept. There were many occasions where he had to perform some kind of miracle just to convince others. This is one of them. Then Deva also accepted he is an enlightened teacher. Fourth week, he was contemplating on Abhidhamma. So he was sitting under an open area. There was no shelter. Later, Devas have created a shelter, a golden chamber for him. Ratanagara. Ratana means gold, Gara means house. There for 1 week, he contemplated on the mind and matter, analyze. Go on analyzing. and definitions of matter or elements or minds or mental energies. Fifth week, Adhyapala. That is a banyan tree. In another place, that place still remained there. That banyan tree still remained there. Because the banyan trees won't die so easily. The roots come down and go developing and developing and developing. Those who have visited India might have seen that banyan tree was still there. So when he was relaxing or meditating under this banyan tree, Mara's three daughters, Tanha, Rati, Raga, appeared to create temptation, because when the Mara was defeated, first time in his life, he was crying. When the daughters came and asked, why, what happened to you? Then he told, the Buddha defeated me. I had a big battle with him, so he defeated me. Then they told, don't worry, we know how to catch him. So three of them appeared by transforming their appearance according to three stages of their life to create temptation, and started to dance in front of the Buddha. They are going on dancing and dancing and dancing. The Buddha did not acknowledge, did not open his eyes to see how they dance and sing. Then they ask, I think your heart is a stone, not a human heart. Why can't you appreciate, acknowledge, admire our singing and dancing? But they could not influence the Buddha's mind. So they danced for so many days. After that they came back. That is how he spent the fifth week after gaining his enlightenment. Then the sixth week, Pathamang bodhipallangkang dutiyancha animmisang tatiyang chankamanang settang chatuttang ratanagarang panchamang ajapalancha muchalindena chattama. Sixth one, Muchalind. I think you have seen in certain Buddha images there is a cobra, very big cobra. Here in this shrine room also we had very big cobra. What is the significance of this? The Buddha was meditating on the sixth week in open area without any shelter, without any tree. Then suddenly there was a very heavy shower. Rain started. This is not actually an ordinary cobra or snake. This is a supernatural spirit or deva transforms into a cobra figure and protected the Buddhas during the rain like hood or umbrella. That is how people started to erect Buddha images with the cobras, significance of that. And today you can see when you visit that place, there is a lake. It's called Muchalinda Lake. I do not know how that place turned into a lake later. Then the last week, he spent 7 weeks. Last week he was sitting under a tree. That tree is called Ajapala. I don't think that tree is available here in this country. When he was sitting under this tree, he felt that he was hungry. "49 days ago, he has taken the milk rice given by Lady Sujata before his enlightenment. This milk rice he made into 49 bowls and swallowed one after the other. After that, he came to the Neranjara river and had a bath. Then he wanted to test whether he can gain his enlightenment or not. What he did, he had his begging bowl on his hand. He threw this begging bowl into the river and created this will in his mind. If I can gain my enlightenment, this begging bowl must go upward, not downward of the river. So he saw this turning and turning and turning, started going upward. Now then he gained confidence. Yes. He crossed the river because at that time can walk. The water is only by 1 or 2 feet during the summer. We also crossed this river so many times. Then the other side of the river, this Bodhi tree, he went there. First he sat down facing the west. Then the area, the earth where he sat down started to shake. Then he thought this should not be the place. He got up and sat down facing the other side. Again the same thing. He got up. Again he sat down facing this way. Again the same problem. Got up. Then he sat down facing the east. Quiet. And he knew this is the direction. There is a traditional belief that East, all the great religious teachers appeared in the East, but not in the West. West developed material or scientific worldly things. East, people develop great philosophy, psychology, spiritual development, wisdom. This you can understand. One of the greatest psychologists mentioned, although as Westerners we glorify our scientific discoveries and philosophy and psychology, when we compare our knowledge with those who have discovered philosophy and psychology in the East, or especially in India, actually we are still in infancy stage. They admit their knowledge is not that advanced. So there is something in the East. They believe it is due to the sun, influence of the sun, solar system. But this is not a religious belief, the common belief amongst the masses. So he gained his enlightenment when he was meditating by facing the east. So he did not take any food or water for 49 days. That day, Tapassu and Balluka, two merchants, they were doing some business. They are Burmese who have come from Burma to India for their business barter system at that time. They bring their own goods and buy things from India. When these two came to this particular area, the wheel of their bullock cart sunk, could not move. They tried and tried and tried, very difficult. Then they saw somebody was sitting under a tree. They went to see him. And they noticed that this person is hungry. They had fried rice, can keep long time, won't get spoiled, and honey. After 49 days, not the first time after gaining his enlightenment, these two persons, Tapassu and Balluka, offered milk rice, not milk rice, fried rice and honey. Before his passing away, the Buddha mentioned the three occasions, very important. Lady Sujata, who offered milk rice before his enlightenment, and Tapassu and Balluka, who offered fried rice and honey first time after gaining his enlightenment. Then, the last meal before his passing away, offered by Chunda Kammaraputta, Chunda. This is very controversial. It is written in the book that Chunda offered the wild boar flesh or meat to the Buddha. He accepted, but he advised Chunda not to offer this meat to the other monk, but not give the reason why. At At that time, the Buddha was suffering very severe stomach complaint, started nearly 3 months ago. From time to time, when the pains aggravated and started purging blood, in spite of all these problems, pains, he accepted this meal offered by this man out of compassion. He said, this is the last meal. After that, nobody else get the chance to offer anything to the Buddha. And he took. After taking this, and again aggravated the pain. But he tolerated. Whether he accepted this or not, he is going to pass away. He announced, tonight I am going to pass away. But out of compassion he accepted this meal and he took it. Then he told Ananda, please don't allow people to blame Chunda because of his meal that I had to die. Whether I accepted his meal or not, today I had to pass it. So he protected Chunda without allowing the people to complain him. The Buddha died because of his food. Then another argument or controversy is this. Those who do not believe that the Buddha has ever taken any meat or fish in his life, they say this is not actually wild boar meat. The mushrooms grown in the area where these pigs dominate. Therefore this name was given. So this is some sort of mushroom. Anyway, it is not very important to us. According to my personal observation, I was there for 4 years. I studied there. I associated with Indians. Although they are not Buddhist, still in northern India, majority or many of them are vegetarian. They never take even egg. For thousands of years, for generations, they have never taken either fish or meat or egg. So it is difficult for me to accept that the Buddha ate meat or fish. But there were many occasions in his teaching, the freedom is given for his disciples to accept whatever people come and offer. Now that is the freedom that they experienced. So this will remain forever as a controversial issue, whether the Buddha is vegetarian or not. Very difficult to believe, although in the teachings we can find many discourses where freedom is given for his disciples. All right. Now these Tapasvi and Baluka offered rice and honey. He accepted. They say he had no begging bowl to accept at that time because he threw that into the Niranjara river. Then it is mentioned that 4 guardian devas and came and offered a begging bowl for him to accept this. So they were very happy. These two knew that this is a holy man. So before they go back, they ask, can you please give us something to carry, to remember you? So the Buddha hasn't got anything, only his piece of cloth. Then what he did, he touched his head, gave a little bit of air. And they have taken these relics here, enshrined and built and Swetagon Pagoda, golden pagoda in Rangoon, enshrined there. These are the traditional, what you call, legend recorded in our Buddhist book. Now let us come back to the Bodhi tree. To pay respect, we recite these verses. Yassa mule nisinnova sabbari vijayang aka patto sabbanyutang sattha vandetang bodhipadapam. Seated at whose base the teacher overcame all foes or enemies, attaining omniscience or enlightenment, that very Bodhi tree do I venerate. In simple language, I pay my respect to the Bodhi tree under which the Buddha gained his enlightenment. Then you can ask this question. So when you go and pay respect to this Bodhi tree, can ask, the Buddha did not gain enlightenment under this Bodhi tree in the Big Field temple. I told you, the first Bodhi tree under which the Buddha gained his enlightenment was destroyed by Emperor Asoka's queen. She was very jealous, very narrow-minded, because Emperor spent most of his time under this tree. She was very unhappy about this. So what he did, he asked people to destroy this tree. Then the king or the emperor sit down and started to meditate and meditate and meditate and contemplate and praying and praying. Then slowly he has seen and the small shoot came out from the same roots. And that tree lasted for, I think, few hundred years. Then there was a very wicked Brahmin ruler, the king. You know, many of those Brahmins are against the Buddha and his teaching. They destroy Buddhism on many occasions. Occasion means several periods. Temples, monasteries, pagodas, images, libraries destroyed, monks were massacred several times. The reason is The Buddha's teaching is rational, very liberal, very meaningful, but this affect their way of religious life, because they were living on by performing rites and rituals and ceremonies and sacrifices and collecting public donation through these practices. The Buddha did not encourage any of those practices. Therefore they were affected. So they have become enemies. In fact, there was one fanatical Hindu in Bengal the Buddha's teaching is just like pure milk which contained in a bag of dog skin. The meaning is this: the Buddha's teaching is good. Since he is not a Brahmin, he is not pure. A non-Brahmin cannot introduce a religion. That is their belief. The Buddha was Sakya clan, warrior class. Therefore, the Buddha is just like the vessels made out of dog skin, very dirty, not pure. Now, this is the way how they condemn the teachings of the Buddha. There was another one, Pushyamitra, real fanatics, completely destroyed. The statement that he has made is recorded in Indian history book in Sanskrit. Yo me sramanasiro dasyati tasyaham dinar satang dasyami. Dinar, this word dinar still exists in Middle East. They use dinar like dollar. In India they use this word dinar. If anyone can give me a head of a Buddhist monk, Sramana Sira, Sramana means monk, Sira means head. Yo me Sramana Siro Dasati. If anyone can give me a head of a Buddhist monk, Tasyaham, to him, I'll give dinar satang, 100 dinar, $100. I think they might have killed innocent people also after shaving their head and given to the king. These are the monks. See the way how they have destroyed. So there were so many enemies in various countries. In India, in China, in Japan, in Sri Lanka, to destroy Buddhism. But again, come up. The reason is, you can understand, it is very difficult for us to do good things, but very easy to do bad things. And this is the nature of the world. To do good thing, we have to go against bad, evil forces. So when we are trying to be good, trying to do good, there will be many enemies. Because they don't like those wicked-minded, cruel-minded, criminal-minded, selfish-minded people cannot agree. So they disturb. That is why they wanted to destroy the Buddha and Buddhism. Wicked world. इमे एते महाबोधि लोकनाथेन पूजिता अहम पिते नमस्सामि बोधिराजा नमस्तुते. This great tree of enlightenment, the Lord of the world, reverence, I too shall salute you. May there be homage to you, O great Bodhi. So you recite these verses when you want to pay respect. And another reason that I have given you, why people are very particular or very keen to go and worship and express their grievances, problems to this Bodhi tree. Those days they knew only that there are some either spirits or devas. So through the influence of these devas, we may get the chance to get rid of our problems and grievances. But today, the scientific discoveries, they have developed this, that human mind can influence the plant life. But still they could not understand how the plant life influences us. Take time for them to understand. But there is some sort of relationship. They have tested this in various ways. By radiating their mental energy towards certain trees. For instance, a man who tested this planted 2 trees, same size, same fertilizer, every day went watering in the same way, without any discrimination. But every morning he goes there and touch one tree and say, I like you, I love you, I want you to grow as possible, and then he goes to the other tree, say, I hate you, I don't like you, you better die and finish. He went on doing this for some time, then he saw the differences. And this tree was growing very healthy and started to blooming flowers and fruits or what, and the other tree very thin and no flowers and no fruits. Yes. How mental energy influence the tree. Again, those who grow these fruits, they play music to influence orchard, then produce very good fruit, music. In Jainism, another religion that exists in India, accept plant life also as a fully developed life. And they do not cut destroy any plant life. They say it is a sin. There is life. In Buddhism, when you study what the Buddha said, he also accommodated this as a Ekindriya Satta. We have 5 indriya, 5 senses. We have 5 senses. But the plant life got only 1. And that sense, what is that? Sensation. You know, there are certain plants, when we touch, closed. Sensation. In Africa, I heard there's a creeper, huge leaves. When any animal or human being go and sit down under this tree, the leaves slowly come down and catch and swallow, take the blood. In Africa. So the sensation, the feeling, the plant life also experience. But when we use our mental energy, then we can influence more. But take time for us to understand how this plant life can influence our life. There must be something. And when we prepare some medicine by using certain leaves or flowers or roots or bark, we feel very much better, can get rid of our sicknesses. How this plant life can influence our physical body. So, I have noticed, especially among Theravada Buddhist countries, because in Mahayana Buddhist countries like China, Japan, Korea and Tibet, Mongolia, Siberia, it's very difficult for them to grow Bodhi tree. Only a tropical climate. That cold climate cannot. I have seen in Mongolia, they have taken one sapling and made a very big glass case, and under this glass case, and this Bodhi tree was planted, but growing very, very slow. The climate is not suitable. So in Mahayana countries, Bodhi tree is not very popular. The main reason is that they cannot grow. In Theravada countries, tropical, like Sri Lanka, Thailand and Burma, Cambodia, Vietnam and India, they pay respect. But even then, in Thailand it is not very popular. And Burma also not very popular. I have seen Buddhists in Sri Lanka are very particular about the Bodhi tree. I think by knowing the mentality of these people, Emperor Asoka, 2300 years ago, sent his own daughter to Sri Lanka with that Bodhi sapling, and still remain in Anuradhapura, regarded as the oldest historical tree in this world. There may be many unknown oldest tree in the jungle or here and there, but this tree is 2300 years old, still remains like that. taken to that country by Emperor Asoka's daughter. What is her name? Sanghamitra. Sanghamitra. Still remain there. Have you seen that Bodhi tree in Sri Lanka? Those who have visited? Here in this book, we can see these Bodhi trees. Don't know where it is. Now here. This is the gold fence to protect the Bodhi tree all around the area. Page 52. You can see the tree. And around this Bodhi sapling, at that time, they have planted, I understand, 7 more Bodhi trees around that area. But all those trees are grown as very huge trees. But this one remains like this for 2,300 years. Now comes the puja, offering of light and flowers and food and medicinal drinks and perfumed smoke. This is our Oriental custom. In the West, people are not interested. They may offer some flowers, but they never offer food and joysticks and many other things. When the Buddha passed away, they had to keep his body for 7 days. His personal attendant, Venerable Ananda, every morning he come and offer his breakfast, the water, as usual. That is for his own satisfaction. So we started this for our own satisfaction. We allocate certain amount, food or anything, in the name of the Buddha. So we come and place or offer this. We know very well the Buddha, the image is not going to eat this. But we are doing this in the name of the Buddha. Later, this food that we offer, we give to somebody else who is hungry. It is a meritorious deed. They never throw away this food. And flowers, whenever we are going to visit VIPs or to welcome VIPs, we carry flower bouquet. Or when we are going to attend a funeral, we carry flowers, wreath. That is the way how we respect. This is our Oriental custom. When the Buddha was alive in India, I think there are few who used to take some flowers and placed at the feet of the Buddha as a mark of respect. So by doing this, we divert our mind. We develop our devotion, and we also reduce a little bit of our craving towards certain things to offer to the Buddha. Not only that. Now let us take flowers. We concentrate and meditate and develop our understanding through these offerings. Here, Pujemi Buddham Kusumena Nena. I offer these flowers to the Buddha. Punyena Metena Chahotu Mokkha. By the virtues of this merits, may I get the chance to attain moksha or nirvana. Puppang milayati yatha idang me. These flowers fade away very soon. Yatha idang me, just like my physical body. Kayo tathayati vinasa bhavam. This kaya, this body, my body which I like so much, also, just like this flower, fade away and decay and disappear. What a wonderful meditation. Through this offering, we develop our deep understanding. We concentrate. That is why they have introduced these practices for us. Therefore, don't say it is ridiculous, meaningless, and what you call rites and rituals and all sort of things. They are meaningful practices for us to develop our faith and devotions and understanding to get into Buddhism. So, light. We offer either oil lamps or candles or whatever it may be, or light. What do we recite? To offer light? What do you recite? We recite a beautiful stanza. What is this? I tell you the meaning, then you can remember. I offer this light in the name of the Buddha, who has enlightened the whole world, dispel the darkness of ignorance. So I offer this light to dispel the darkness around this area. In the same manner as the Buddha has dispelled the darkness of ignorance. See whether it is meaningful or not. In all our recital there is very deep meaning, but we have to concentrate on that meaning. Then you get the realization why it is necessary. Smoke, incense. Incense creates some sort of influence in our mind, the smell, recall, or the remember. Because these things we use only for religious purposes, not for any other purposes. So, as soon as we get this nice incense aroma, when we recall the Buddha and develop our concentration. So we offer this incense in the name of the Buddha. No one can say they are meaningless practices. They are not under rites and rituals, as we mentioned earlier. Of course, if you don't like these practices, you can practice Buddhism. No harm, because these things are not compulsory. But through these practices, many people get into Buddhist way of life and get used to it. Food, usually after 12, at midday, we do not offer solid food like rice or what you call vegetables or meat or anything. Only daytime. Afternoon or evening, we offer only drinks. That is why it is mentioned medicinal drink. Medicinal drink, medicine means here the drink that we take to quench our thirst. Therefore, any drinks what we take at that time become medicinal drink, with a cup of tea or coffee or fruit juice or whatever it may be, but not solid food. Evening people do not offer solid food. That is why we use the medicinal drink. Daytime, offering of food. Whatever you eat, you can offer. Chaitya Vandana. Chaitya means Chaitya, Pali, Sanskrit, pagoda. Pagoda is, I understand, is a Portuguese word. The original Portuguese word is pagote. I think during that period we started to use this word pagoda. Pali and Sanskrit word Chaitya or Chaitya. And the shape of this pagoda here, here. There are 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very meaningful. This pagoda of Chaitya started to erect in India earlier, before the Buddha's time. After burning a dead body, the ashes, the bones that they have collected, enshrined here in this pagoda, and erect this one to remember that person. And before his passing away, when the disciples ask what to do with your dead body when you passed away, the Buddha has given instruction. When I die, I can wrap my body, piece of cloth like this, and burn. After cremation, you can collect the ashes and erect the pagoda or chaitya for people to remember those devout Buddhists. Having seen this pagoda, they get the chance to develop their devotions and confidence to follow the Buddha's way of life. So he has given this advice. And the shape of this pagoda is very meaningful. You know, our body is the combinations of 4 elements. Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. Solidity, fluidity, heat and Vayu, motions. And this pagoda indicates these 4 elements. And this base is Patavi, solidity. Then this one, Apo, bubble, fluid. Bubble is like this, fluidity. This one, Tejo, the heat energy that which accumulate here. Vayu, dissolve. So, Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu, 4 elements. The meaning of this pagoda. Explain what happened to our physical body. That is how they started to erect pagoda. When the Buddha was going to Kusinara, on the way, because he had to travel, I think, few months, on the way he pointed out many chaityas, many pagodas. Look at that pagoda, to his disciple. Then he explained something, what happened and why they erected this pagoda. So when you read Mahaparinibbana Sutra, you can see all these things. So that is why I told you, even before the Buddha's coming, they started erecting this pagoda as a religious symbol. So we respect, we pay homage to remember the Buddha or the chief disciples of the Buddha. Also erect the pagodas. And Sariputta, Moggallana, 2 chief disciples' ashes, they have discovered from a pagoda in Sanchi. During the British period, they have taken these ashes to England. After keeping these ashes for a long time, they decided to return to India, and pieces of bones like this, Sariputta and Moggallana, and enshrined again in Sanchi. So the disciples also were respected by the devotees by erecting the pagodas. So all these are meaningful practices. So those who cannot understand condemn us, saying we are idol worshippers and tree worshippers and this and that, but they do not know the significance. That is why it is necessary for you to learn. I think this is enough today. And I will trust with the transference of marriage. 211, I think. Yes, 211. Okay, follow me. Imina punya kammena upadhyaya gunuttara acari upakaraca mata pita piya mamang Suryo Candi Maharaja पिच ब्रह्मा माराच इंदाच लोकपालाच देवता यमो मित्ता मनुष्याच मध्यत्ता वेरिकापिच सब्बे सत्ता सुखी हन्तु पुण्यानि पकतानि मे सुखं च त्रिविधं देन्तु क्षिप्पं पापेत ओमतं इमिना पुण्यकम्मेन इमिना उद्दिशेन च क्षिप्पां सुलभे चैव तन्नोपादानच्छेदनम् ये संताने हिना धम्मा याव निब्बानतो ममं नश्यन्तु सर्वदा एव यत्र जातो भवे भवे उजुचित्तो सतिपन्यो सल्लेखो विरियवामिना मारालभन्तु नौकासां कातुञ्च विरियेषु मे बुद्धादिपवरो नाथो धम्मो नाथो अरुत्तमो नाथो पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो संघो नाथोत्तरो ममं तेषोत्तमानुभावेन मारोकासं लभन्तु So tomorrow all night chanting.